Welcome to lesson 12.8. Today we're going to be talking about translations of trig graphs. Our three vocab terms for today: phase shift, that is a horizontal translation of a periodic function. We have a vertical shift, which is a vertical translation of a periodic function. And a midline, that is the new horizontal axis at which a periodic graph oscillates after a vertical shift is applied. First thing we're going to talk about is a phase shift of a periodic function. That is a horizontal shift, so we're going to move either left or right. To find that in the equation, that's the number that is either being added or subtracted directly from theta. So if we're going to subtract from theta, it's going to be a phase shift to the right. Adding to theta is a phase shift to the left. So for example, if we had the sign of theta plus 45, so you see how 45 is being added directly to theta, that means we're going to shift to the left 45 degrees. On the opposite of that, if we had the sign of theta minus 45, so the 45 is being subtracted directly from theta, that means we're going to move to the right 45 degrees. So adding goes to the left, subtracting goes to the right. So now we're going to include phase shift in with finding amplitude and period. So we're going to bring back those from the last section, but add phase shift in as well. So if you remember amplitude, we take the number in front. Right now there's no number, so our amplitude should be 1. For the period, we still take the number out in front, so this time it's going to be out in front of the parentheses. Well, again, there's nothing there, so there's really a 1. So I'm going to take 360 over 1 to get the period of 360 degrees. And then finally, the phase shift, we're subtracting, which means we're going to go to the right, and we're subtracting 90, so it's going to be to the right 90 degrees. So the amplitude is 1, the period is 360, and the phase shift is we're moving it right 90. So when we do this in a check-in, make sure you do the direction first and then the number when you type in your answer. So again, we've got another example here. We've got 2 times the cosine of theta plus 45. Again, looking for amplitude, we take the number in front. That's a 2, so our amplitude is going to be 2. For the period, again, take the number in front of the parentheses. There isn't any, so again, there's going to be a 1. So I'm going to take 360 over 1, which just gets me 360. For our phase shift inside the parentheses, we have a plus sign. Plus means we're going to move to the left. And if it's plus 45, we're going to go to the left 45. So again, in the check-in and the quizzes and the tests, and make sure you do direction first, then the how far. Go ahead and pause the video, do this last one on your own, and then hit play and see how you did. So for this one, it's 3 tangent of theta minus 60. For amplitude, remember, just because there's a 3 in front, we're talking about tangent, and the amplitude of tangent is always undefined. For the period, there's no number in front of the parentheses, and with tangent, we do 180 divided by b, so 180 divided by 1 gives us 180 for the period. Phase shift, it's a minus 60 inside the parentheses. The minus tells us to go right. The 60 is how far we're going to go, so the phase shift is right 60 degrees. Next, we're going to talk about a vertical shift. So vertical shift is up or down. That's found in the equation as the number that is being added or subtracted to the trig function in general, not to theta directly. So if we add, that would move the graph up. If we subtract, that would move it down. So for example, if we had sine of theta minus 3, notice how the minus 3 is outside of the parentheses. That means we're going to shift down 3. We could also have it where we add in front. So 4 plus the cosine of theta, that is still a vertical shift, and since it's plus, we're going to move it up 4, because it's a positive 4 that we're adding to cosine. With vertical shift, we also talk about the midline of a periodic function. Now the midline is the horizontal line that the periodic function oscillates around. So with the basic periodic function, sine of theta, cosine of theta, the midline is always y equals 0. Okay, that's where we always start out at. Now, midline is only affected if a vertical shift is being applied. If there's no vertical shift, our midline would stay at y equals 0. Okay, however, if we have a vertical shift going up, we're going to raise the midline up, whatever the vertical shift was. If the vertical shift is down, we're going to lower the midline, however far the vertical shift was. So for example, if we had a vertical shift up 5, we would add 5 to this 0, and our new midline equation would be y equals 5. If we shifted it down 2, we would subtract 2 from that 0 and get a midline equation of y equals -2. So if it's up, we add to 0. If it's down, we subtract from 0. And again, it's just however far we've shifted will tell us how far our midline is moving. So now we're going to do all 5 wrapped up into one problem. Okay? So we're going to find amplitude, period, phase shift, vertical shift, and midline equation for each function. So our first one is 3 sine of 2/3 times theta minus 180 plus 4. So again, for amplitude, we look in front, it's a 3. For the period, we take b, which is 2/3, and we divide 360 by it. So we're going to do 360 divided by 2/3, which is the same thing as taking 360 times 3/2, which we should get a period of 540. For phase shift, we look inside the parentheses. It's a minus. Minus means right. And it's a minus 180, so we're going to move to the right 180 degrees. For vertical shift, we look at what we're adding or subtracting outside the parentheses. We're adding 4, so the vertical shift should be up 4. Okay. Now, for the midline equation, again, we start out at y equals 0. Since we're going up 4, we're going to add 4 to 0, and we're going to get a midline equation of y equals 4. Okay, again, up means we add our shift to 0. If it were to be down, we would be subtracting our shift from 0. Our next example, we've got y is equal to 2 cosine of 1/2 of theta plus 90 minus 2. So again, amplitude, the number in front, that's 2. For our period, again, we take b, which is 1/2, and we're going to divide 360 by 1/2, which, instead of dividing by 1/2, we can multiply it by 2/1, which is just multiplying it by 2. So our period is 720. For our phase shift, again, looking inside the parentheses, it's a plus, so that means we're going to move left. Since we're adding 90, we're going to go left 90 degrees. For our vertical shift, we look outside, it's a -2. Minus means down, and so the 2 is how far we're moving down. For our midline equation, again, it's always going to be y equals something. Since it's down 2, we're going to subtract 2 from 0 and get a midline equation of y is equal to -2. So again, up means we add to 0, down means we subtract from 0. So keep that in mind moving forward. Our next one, we've got y is equal to sine of 3 times theta minus 60 minus 5. Amplitude, again, the number in front, there's no number, so the amplitude is just 1. For the period, we take the number in front of the parentheses, it's a 3, and we're going to take 360 divided by that. 360 divided by 3 gives us a period of 120 degrees. For the phase shift inside the parentheses, it's a -60. Well, minus means right, so we're moving it to the right 60 degrees. For the vertical shift, we look outside. We're subtracting 5 outside. Subtract means down, so we're going to move the graph down 5. And finally, for our midline equation, always starts out at y equals. Since we're moving down 5, we're going to take 0 minus 5 and get a midline equation of y is equal to -5. Go ahead and pause the video, do this last one on your own, and then hit play and see how you did. So again, our equation is 2 tangent of 6 times theta plus 45 plus 1. Amplitude for tangent is always undefined, so it doesn't matter that there's a 2 there. Tangent is always undefined for amplitude. For the period, we look at b, which is 6, and we take 180 over 6. So again, tangent is 180 divided by our value for b. So 180 over 6 gives us a period of 30. Phase shift, we look inside the parentheses, it's plus 45. Plus means left, So we're gonna go left 45 degrees. For our vertical shift, we have a +1 on the outside. That means we're gonna go up 1, okay, plus means up. For our midline equation, since we moved up, we're gonna add our shift of 1 to 0, giving us a midline equation of y equals 1.